Remember to subscribe for daily top Reddit stories. Okay, story time. What is something about yourself that sounds totally made up but is 100% real? I was the best man on both sides of a Les wedding because I had dated both the bride and the bride, stayed close friends and introduced them to each other after our breakups. I was at a store when Tony Hawk was signing autographs. I was only 10 at the time and was a huge fan. One of his early video games had just come out. The store had a couple TVs on the wall and some video games to play. Being a kid, I waited for one controller to open up and someone leave. A kid ended up leaving and I grabbed the controller and started playing and minding my own business. A couple minutes later, the store wanted to grab photos of Tony playing his own video game. He came over and grabbed the second controller and began to play multiplayer with me. Probably played for 10 minutes. The bonus was it was also my 10th birthday, so I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater with Tony Hawk. Edit. Wow, I made this comment and didn't return to Reddit until just now. Was not expecting it to be that big of a hit. Thank you. I do not have photos of myself playing the game with him, but I believe my parents have a couple of photos of me with him and getting his autograph. I still have the signed board on my wall. I've published 4 peer-reviewed scientific papers on hamster testicles. Edit. Holy shit. I never thought I would write this, but RIP my inbox. I'm currently working on a critical COVID-related project which doesn't involve testicles and thus would be much less exciting for Redditing purposes. A pelican engulfed my head with its massive ducking beak when I was a small child. Pelicans are hunts. I won 2 TV game shows. The $10,000 Pyramid won $10,300 in 1975, and Sale of the Century was on the show for 9 days. Won $34,000 in cash and prizes in 1985. I got ran over by a car, but the driver didn't see me and proceeded to back over me. Edit. Thanks for all the kind words. I'm shocked at the amount of people who said that this happened to them or someone they know knew as well. The world really is a weird place. And for all who are asking, my legs are perfectly fine now. On a side note, I actually really enjoy running. It's one of my favorite things to do. No, I'm not from China nor have I ever lived there. I'm American. I don't quite understand why people are asking this. Edit number 2. A couple Redditors have pointed out to me that it's because killing someone in China is apparently less expensive, which is a horrifying thought, but thanks for the explanations. Edit number 3. How is my mental health? Was I traumatized? Well, it very ducking terrifying at the time and I was definitely scared of cars afterwards. But if you're asking if I'm feeling any trauma to this day, then I would say not very much if at all. Thanks for asking though. I ran out of gas outside of La Paz, Bolivia. Luckily it was downhill for about 6 kilometers into the city. I coasted the whole way on my motorbike, past buses and drifted into a gas station. Never missed a beat. At age 50 odd and with limited to no video game experience, my mother completed Mario 64 before I did. In about half the time it finally took me to do it. When I was a kid, I woke up to find my cat giving birth to her kittens on my pillow, 1 inch from my face. I took it as a compliment. I've had a headache since August 2015 and I will probably have it for the rest of my life. It's only on half my head, so I got that going for me, which is nice. I am related to William Henry Harrison, the president who died from hypothermia because he wouldn't wear a jacket. My great-grandfather and his son both died from hypothermia as well, but under slightly different experiences. I have almost died from eating way too many vitamins, jumping into a ceiling fan, and jumping from a cliff. My dad almost lit a gas station on fire. Basically, we are a very dumb bloodline starting from William Henry Harrison. I was once sponsored by the Crunk Energy Drink Company for sailing. I imagine I was the only sailor on their list. I literally just emailed them saying that I sailed and asked if they wanted me to put stickers on my boat. They sent me a few cases of the drink, t-shirts, hats, the works. My car was known as the Crunk Mobile. When my mom was in grad school, she took several labs where she worked with cadavers. Because my dad worked nights, she often had to take me to class with her, and she'd usually just plonk me down on the table with the cadaver while she worked on it. I can't look left. Seriously, I'm not an ambi looker. It's like the Zoolander of birth defects. It's called Duane syndrome, and my left eye can't turn left, so if I try to look to my left I see double. Growing up, my parents raised me to believe it was a party trick and not a disability, so I would always show it off to friends. Which in retrospect I think was pretty sweet. Edit. My mom discovered that something was off when I was a baby and she was doing the airplane motion with the spoon of baby food to the left. My left eye was not cooperating, lol. Edit 2. Fun fact, now that I'm in my 30s I can see in photos that there is a bag under my right eye but not under my left eye. Presumably because I use my right eye far more often. Edit 3. I am so excited to see there are so many fellow redditors with Duanes and I'm not alone. I've never met anyone else who had it, so it's really nice to hear from people who know what it's like. Edit 4. A lot of you have asked about driving. It didn't impact me mainly because my mom taught me how to use my mirrors first by turning my head before even letting me turn the car on for the first time. She walked around the car and we tried to identify my limitations. I also have a blind spot detector on my car now, which is super helpful. I try not to totally depend on it though. I saw the former Prime Minister of Poland in his underwear. Husband and I fell in love at first sight. Moved in together after 2 days. Married 5 months later. Still married. It will be 40 years in May. I am one of very few people outside World War I to live through mustard gas. So rare the doctors, 1995 no internet, had no idea how to treat me. I got hernia by sneezing too hard. I cannot see 3D effects in movies or games. I didn't know that until a friend showed me his new Nintendo 3DS and I asked him whether this thing was a scam because it didn't look any different to me than a normal DS. We had a fight over this because we both thought the other one was bullshitting him. You're holding it wrong. How the duck do you not see this? Are you ducking kidding me right now? There's nothing 3D about this thing. One of my ancestors was dumb and bought one of Napoleon's doorknobs. It turns out it's fake. Doorknobs were invented after Napoleon died. Once in college I applied for a job at the library help desk. I figured I would help people find books. Didn't give it much more thought than that. During the interview, I aced all of the customer service questions. Then they asked me whether I knew how to defrag a hard drive. Cue alarm bells in my head. But I kept calm outwardly and said no. But you can teach me. I worked in IT for 3 years by accident. They were too nice to fire me. My great-great-grandfather was a Pinkerton detective, acted on vaudeville, and had 5 wives in 2 different states that knew nothing of each other. He also slightly changed his last name each time and never got caught until Ancestry website happened, lol. I've been stabbed 8 times. Edit. I didn't get the chance to tell my story in court as they pled guilty before I was called. I was drunk and I came out the pub I was in to get some fresh air. I walked past 3 guys and one of them asked me for a cigarette. I told him I don't smoke and he became immediately aggressive. I argued with him for a while and his friends started shouting at me and threatening me. At this point he kind of disappeared behind me. One of the others showed me a knife, so I turned and walked away. I knew they were following me as was walking back to the pub. I had a bus stop on my left hand side and a building on my right. I looked up and saw the first guy walking towards me. It was fight or flight and I had nowhere to fly to, so I decided that attack was the best form of defense. I think I managed 1 punch before the 3 of them jumped me. They had been robbing and beating up people all over town for about 2 weeks beforehand. I once successfully ran an unfunded shelter for 100 homeless veterans as a homeless civilian. I took my mother for a surprise trip to New York City. She got married to my father there in 1968. The surprise was manufactured by way of telling her we were going to Australia. We live in New Zealand. So a trip to Australia is not a huge deal. It's the type of thing you could do for the weekend, and therefore she packed a bag and brought her passport. We got to the airport and said, surprise, we're going to New York, and she cried her eyes out with delight. When we arrived, on our first morning, I said, okay, what do you want to do? She said, when I was last here, In 1968, the Twin Towers weren't complete, so I'd like to go to the top of them. Your wish is my command, I said, and off we went to the WTC. That was the afternoon of the 10th of September, 2001. Suffice it to say, there was a particular poignancy when we looked out the window at around 8 AM the next morning. I've been in 3 fatal train accidents, never had a scratch. I had my tongue surgically enhanced for more reach and flexibility when I was 8. I cannot taste any salt whatsoever. Edit. For people asking, it's a brain thing. Food tastes bland. Salted chips taste plain. And I've not had any British food. Edit 2. I can still taste other spices and herbs. No, I don't know what cum tastes like. Sorry to put you on blast, dude, but that's weird. Salt water just tastes bad. Message and other sodium based things just make me gag. Getting on Xbox, Overwatch, etc. doesn't help, but I can smell the salt. I was baptized by a serial killer. Arrested and spent 3 days in a holding cell for a crime that I didn't commit. About a year after the whole matter was done and dusted with. Mind you, I say didn't commit a crime, but I was involved in the story from start to finish. My grandfather went AWOL on the French Foreign Legion and was banned from ever going back to France. All because he left to marry my grandmother. Edit. Oh god, this blew up. Reddit YouTubers, please don't feature this comment. My family ancestry can be traced back to a court jester who served in the court of King Jacob IV of Sweden. My grandfather got a reward from Mussolini in 1935. He was just born with 6.3 kilograms, 13 lbs 14.2 Oz, and was awarded the award of Italy's biggest baby. Also, since some people asked, my great-grandma also worked as a cleaning lady one day before he was born. He was born the 24th of December, and she worked until the 23rd of December of that year. And if you think my grandpa was big, recently a baby was born in India with 6.7 kilograms, 14.77 lb, and the world record was for another Italian baby, born in 1955 with flippin' 10.2 kilograms, 22 lb 8 Oz. I beat anorexia. I'm a guy and I do not have photos of me from that time, due to shame, so I have no proof. I have gone from 70 pounds to 130 pounds. I was shooting some stuff in my village and a bullet ricocheted and hit me in the torso. I was afraid my parents would kill me if they found out. I was young, so I used a knife and tweezers to remove the fragment and a stapler to stitch it up and then cover the wound, and they never found out until a few years later when I told them. I once won a $500 raffle during a routine visit to my local tea shop. It was the building's annual Black Friday event and there were 5 baskets with varying amounts of goods, services, and coupons. I needed tea, so my only stop was the tea shop. It cost me $20 to fill my tins, but they said raffle tickets were given out after a $25 purchase. I said duck it and got a hot tea for me and the woman in line behind me, entered with that one ticket. I got a call a few days later saying I won the top prize basket. When I went to claim, they asked about my purchases. I told them and they said the drawings had over 1,000 tickets and many people had over a dozen entries. The raffle prize included $25 to the tea shop. I was born 12 weeks early and was nearly born earlier. My mom had a weak uterus from endo, so they had to push me back and stitch her up. The doctors told my parents to expect me to be unable to breathe, walk, etc. on my own. The doctor performing the C-section nearly dropped in surprise and how hard I was screaming and flailing. I do have a few health problems, but it could have been much worse. Editing since others are mentioning their experiences and health issues. I had hydrocephalus. It was treated poorly. The doctor thought I was fine, and my parents were overreacting when I was seizing and turning colors. And it was treated, and now had 6 featuring of tubing in the form of a shunt, as well as seizures I'll never outgrow. They're treated with medication. Otherwise, outside asthma and other smaller things, I live a normal life. I graduated high school a few years ago, and hope to be married soon. I lost my heel in a lawnmower accident. I was 4 at the time and I won't say who exactly did it. but he was mowing and it was a riding mower and the hitch on the back where you can hook a little trailer. I love to stand on that part and ride. Well, this time I saw a frog in the grass, and being the 4-year-old I was at the time, I jumped off the mower and onto the grass and put my hands over the frog to catch it, and he didn't realize I had jumped off and he backed up. I have won an actual WWE match. Spent a really cool day in London with Christian Slater and his mum. His mum is adorable. I found out my father wasn't my biological father in 10th grade biology class. We were learning about blood types and traits. I raised my hand thinking I was a smartass. Your chart isn't accurate. My dad has AB negative and I'm O positive. My teacher said I think your mom has some explaining to do. And we all chuckled. Turned out, he was not my father. I have phytophthirdermatitis, which is a big fancy word for I can't get acidic juices, lemons, limes, apples, oranges, etc. on my skin and go out in the sun. Turns my skin brown like a rash. Doesn't hurt or itch, just discoloration. Happened 3 or 4 times in my life. I lost my virginity before my first kiss. My dad kidnapped me and took me to Singapore for very malicious purposes. I'm sure you could imagine. I was 15 and my dad literally had fake documents and suitcases filled with random clothes. When we got there we went to a sketchy hotel and after 15 minutes he went to the bar. A bit after that, some guy just walks in. I was confused but he began muttering saying I was too pale and too old and he left. I called my dad but he didn't answer, so I climbed out through the window and went to the police. They put me on a plane home that same hour. I don't really tell people because it's a bit of a crazy story and sounds made up, hence why it's here, but yeah. I was almost named Storm because I was born at 3 AM in the middle of a massive tornado storm. One touchdown actually a few minutes after I was born. I was also essentially dead. Docs thought they were going to lose both me and my mom, but somehow I lived ditches. I've literally never been sick, or at least never showed symptoms of being sick. No colds, no fevers, no viruses, no flu even. I really don't know what it's like to be sick or get sick, and frankly, I hope I never do. It'd sure be ironic if the first time I got sick was now. Edit. I'm 30 years old by the way, that was probably worth mentioning. I am blind. Many online commenters think that I am lying. If I wanna lie, I would rather tell everyone that I am a rich traveler. There's a scientist who died on the same day I was born and her research subject was very close to mine. Not just the field but down to some articles she wrote and some of her side interests. Some tidbits of her personal life also echo some of mine. I only found out after I graduated and now I low-key feel like reincarnation might be a thing. ETA. I don't really believe reincarnation is a thing. That was a joke. Jesus. People. A horse threw me in the air when I was a child, but I wasn't on his back. He grabbed the skin of my back with his teeth and yeeted me. I never graduated high school but I have a bachelor's degree. I was homeschooled and my mom never went through the legal steps to actually get me a real diploma. So she made one in Photoshop that was then used to get me into this podunk community college that didn't verify it. From there I got my associate's degree, which I then used to get into a decent university where I got my bachelor's. I can smell some illnesses and chronic symptoms. My sense of smell is normally pretty average, but I can sometimes smell if a person is sick before they start showing symptoms, and have been able to predict 2 seizures, a diabetic blood sugar drop, and multiple chronic migraines before they happened. Shoot, I gotta go get smashed. Thanks for listening. If I spark joy, hit me with a like and subscribe. I make new videos every day. Till then, check out another video or leave a comment. I love you. Have a great day, you beautifully impressive person.